So football is back. The Ten Hag era begins. We are here previewing Manchester United versus Liverpool on pre-season. Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the preview of Ten Hag's first game in charge of Manchester United. I am Alex and I am joined by Ronaldo Brown. All right? What's with the handshake? What's all that about?
Obviously, Joe, and not here, so I thought it'd be a little bit more formal.
We should be a
little bit more professional.
Abdul, how you doing? Let's check out. We got to do it now. Anyway, this is the preview. Abdul, how are you doing, mate?
I'm all right, yeah.
All excited about the start of the Ten Hag era?
Yeah, I'm actually excited. I think previewing these is a lot better than regular games because no one's going to hold you accountable for playing like Ahmad left back or do whatever you want really. It's pre-season.
You can do what you want. But let's get into it straight away. We're going to talk, starting off a little bit about Manchester United's midfield. All the talk this summer has been about Frankie de Jong, whether he's going to be part of this squad and whether we're going to get him. But at this moment in time, he isn't a United player. So in terms of midfield options, we are still limited. And how do you see us kind of lining up and what do you think the issues are going to be if we get Frankie de Jong, if we don't get Frankie de Jong, and if we've got to use what we have?
I think if we're looking at it from a pre-season perspective, I can see us starting James Garner quite a bit just because you want to see where he's at. Obviously, he's had a great season at Nottingham Forest. People seem to think that, he's more of a deep-lying player. I actually think he's sort of changed his role since being at Forest. You see him go into the area a lot. You see him push higher up the pitch. But we've seen him at academy level. I've watched a lot of him at that level. Me and Steve back in the day, we've gone to Sports League Village and we watched him, and we always used to see him, drop deep, pick the ball off the defenders, hit balls over the top, hit balls wide, left to right, and done diagonals. We know what he can do. So maybe that's something that Ten Hag can work on with him, because if Frankie isn't available and if he doesn't join, then that's someone you might push a bit more to start the season.
So, Ronaldo, what do you think about in terms of that Donny van der Beek? Where does he kind of fit? Do you think he'll probably be alternating in for Bruno Fernandes, or is he going to be someone that plays in that too? I saw some reports today that Donny van der Beek is an option in there. Where do you think he fits into this midfield right now? It
would actually be quite interesting to see if Donny van der Beek would be an option in there, because when he's played under Ten Hag previously, he's played in that Bruno role, because when he's played that 4-2-4, he's not really played as a deep player at all. So I'm not sure whether further down the line at Ten Hag's at United, and it seems that obviously we've got a gaping hole in that defensive midfield area that he's going to probably try him a little bit deeper in that pivot. I don't see it happening. I think he's just going to be a bit of a backup for Bruno, or someone that can borderline challenge him, because Bruno didn't exactly set the world alight last season. And sometimes I think some games you might want something a little bit more different. Bruno's a lot more dynamic. He's much more of a goal threat than Donny van der Beek is. But maybe Donny might be needing them games where you need to hold on to possession a little bit more. That's always been a problem with Bruno. And that was the main reason why a lot of teams didn't want to sign Bruno in the first place before we did, because he looked into his passing stats and the fact that he was quite loose. Yeah, sometimes with his ball play.
He does give the ball away. There's even been a clip today from training, and he's tried a little pass around the corner. He's given it away. People going, "Fox, this is typical Bruno." Already giving the ball away on the Ten Hag.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. No, I'm not criticising him for that, because he's someone that makes things happen. Because even then, he still last season didn't he create the most chances in the Premier League still last season somehow. So it's not like, I think it's a give and take thing with Bruno. Do you know what I mean? So he's kind of boom and bust at times, which isn't necessarily bad. And what I find interesting is we are chasing de Jong. We're talking about whether we'll actually get him. Even when we do get de Jong, our midfield options don't look like we have much of a balanced pairing. Do you know what I mean? No. So, like, whichever midfield pair you come up with doesn't seem to be incredibly balanced, because we don't have that defensive midfield or defensive anchor.
I think it's a lot better with de Jong, because I think that he holds on. So he fills a lot of the gaps that all these players struggle with, what McTominay struggles with, what Fred struggles with.
But he's not a defensive midfielder.
But he's not a defensive midfielder. But I still think you'll see, I think it looks a lot better with de Jong and Fred, and de Jong and McTominay, and de Jong and Garner. The problem is de Jong can't play every single game we play, and I don't see the one that goes alongside him at the minute, or kind of can rotate in for him. I think he's got to play at the moment every minute for United. If we do get him, that's my worry at this moment in time. But moving on a little bit from our midfield, another player that has divided opinion for a few years now, but is now back in the squad and might be given a bigger role depending on who stays, who goes, is Anthony Martial. Abdul, what do you think Anthony Martial can do on this tour? Do you think that he's going to be a big part of the season going ahead, and more specifically these few games coming up?
I think Martial, the focus for him is getting back up to that level that I think he had. I think it was obviously that last season before COVID, obviously, then we finished it off that summer, but the 17 Premier League goal season without scoring any penalties as well, which was very impressive. I felt in that period where I think Marcus Rashford had been injured and then Bruno had come in, I think because Martial can keep the ball close, tight to him a lot of the time, a bit more clean with it, I feel like it balanced it between him and Bruno very well. And then we look at the start of that season as well, the connection that he had in multiple games with Marcus Rashford, that understanding of giving it and then getting it back. We've seen a couple of goals against Norwich like that. I know it was Norwich, but those ones stand out. There was one at Brighton at home as well, where they seem quite telepathic. They seem to build something. I know even in that season, I still had an issue with Martial in terms of his movement, because I think he's a brilliant finisher, even though I feel that's declined to a certain level. I feel I want to see him enter certain areas in and around the box a bit more and be a bit more proactive in the area, because he's not exactly like the smallest player or anything, so he can still get a header off him. He can still put the ball in the air, can still hold it up. He's not like the weakest of players. Once he gets the ball down, he's technically very gifted. For him, it's about getting back to that physical level. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was that groin injury, he had like an operation. If that took a knock-on effect, is it a mental aspect? But there is no doubt that the guy was and hopefully is still at that talent level. And I'd love him to kick on, man. Like at the end of the day, the first couple of seasons, they were enjoyable to watch. He's given the fans a lot. You can't take that away from him. And then just before that, again, we look at him and Marcus Rashford. Those are players that have shown things. And a lot of the time, when you look at, and I always use them as the example, that Liverpool team, when Jurgen Klopp took over, there was an overhaul, but there was 3-4 players in there that looked completely different. One of them being Jordan Henderson under Jurgen Klopp. So you need to see how these coaches adapt. If you've shown a good level for Oli, for Ragnick or whatever managers we've had previously, then how is it going to be with a seriously modern coach who wants to keep the ball, who's got this aggressive style? Then I think we can see some players go up a level, and I think he's got pre-season to give it a shot, because the Ronaldo situation's a bit bleak, and you don't know what you're going to get out of that.
We're not going to talk about Ronaldo in this one because he isn't on tour. But what do you make of that? Do you think Martial plays? Is he going to play? I mean, is there a chance that he plays every single pre-season game and starts?
I think he's got an opportunity out of necessity, because we obviously expected Ronaldo to be the starting number 9 next season, which was already going to be a little bit of a problem due to his age and the increasing games that we are going to be playing next season, countered by the fact that Ronaldo's someone that wants to play every game. And we don't really have a backup in that area now that we've lost Cavani. And Martial is probably going to be the leading number 9 option going into the season if we don't find a replacement, because it looks like Ronaldo's basically got a foot out the door. But like Abdullah said, he's a player that does have a lot of quality and ability, and it's actually surprising to see him fall by the wayside a little bit. I don't know if it's an attitude thing, whether it's... He's always got a bit of an issue with his body language. He does come across quite sulky. He doesn't seem like he reacts very well to adversity. And he seems to have lost his way, because especially when we signed him as a Golden Boy winner. We signed him as someone who he had a Ballon d'Or clause in his contract. So he obviously had a lot of expectations on him and levels to get to, which hasn't quite gotten to. And I actually think he's a better left winger than he's a forward. I think him trying to become this number 9, I don't think it necessarily suited him. He doesn't really have that fox in the box mentality or that.
That's the issue.
That for goal scorers.
It's what style Ten Hag really wants off him. Does he want like a box 9, as you say, someone who's going to be there, who's going to nick a goal off a rebound or whatever, or do you want someone who's going to keep the ball tight and then maybe allow Rashford to get into those areas?
But I think Martial is miles better. What's Martial's best attribute? His dribbling.
Yeah, but do you think
that's his best attribute?
Even this 17-goal season, though, I thought he lost a bit of that. Don't you think like the goals against City, the both goals against City were all like shift and shoot? A lot of those goals, they were very tight in and around the area. He's not really like running at guys and taking them on as much, even in that 17-goal
he needs to get back to that, because Martial's most dangerous when he picks up the ball in left inside channel and he's driving that way and he's dribbling from there when he's playing wide. That's why I think he's best. I don't think he's a natural striker, to be honest, but it's the only option we're going to have if Ronaldo leaves and we haven't replaced him.
Yeah.
He might be the only option for tomorrow. But moving on to your predicted 11s. Make sure you get in the comments and get your predicted 11s in. But we're going to start with Abdul's. What is your 11? Now, you can again, this is pre-season, so this could change after half time. This could change straight away. Who's going to be fit or whatever.
So I've mixed it up a bit.
For?
I've seen obviously a couple of the players that have been on international duty post-season. I think we'll get a rest, the likes of Bruno and whatnot. In that, I've gone Tom Heaton. I think maybe he just switches up. Maybe he wants to see the level he's at. Obviously, we're going for a backup keeper. We were linked heavily, randomly actually, like the last couple of days to that Lazio geezer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've not really watched much of him, but obviously he's going Brentford. So maybe because Tom Heaton, we need to know the level he's at. He gets a goal from the start. Axel Tuanzebe, I would love to actually see what he does, getting back up to that level. Maybe someone that Ten Hag knows how to utilise. And obviously with the injuries, we've got Maguire, Varane, a couple of injuries in there. It's going to be, I reckon, between him and Eric Bailly. Lindelof is someone I think Eric Ten Hag will like. Watching some of the way Martinez actually finds the balls in behind defences. Lindelof's done that for Bruno and Rashford in the past. Luke Shaw, obviously, he's got the metal out of his leg or whatever happened, the operation, getting that sorted. So he's now obviously been training. He's probably going to come back in. Could see him last year there from the clips we've seen. Wan-Bissaka, which was interesting in the clips you see Wan-Bissaka quite high and inverted in an area where he can recover the ball aggressively. And I think that's actually the best position you can get out of Wan-Bissaka, where he pushes up to win the ball but doesn't do too much on it once he's won it.
He's not crossing, he's not having to shoot. He's not. It's his
exactly.
main thing. Yeah.
With Sancho being the wide creator.
It's amazing me saying that about a former winger. But anyway.
It's mad.
It's mad. But you see the levels at the top of the game and how it is in it. But then obviously Jimmy Garner spoke at the start, so I won't go too much into him. Obviously about how he plays from deep, so I'd expect him to get some minutes there. It could be more of a double pivot with Fred and Garner if you watch some of the clips. Or Donny and Garner and Donny and Fred, sorry, but I would love to see it set out like that. Fred is an aggressive ball winner. Donny, we know he can get into the area, but also can keep the ball really well. And I'd like to see him get close to Martial and Sancho because I think those players can keep the ball and treasure it quite well. And I'd love to see some given goals there with Marcus getting on that inside left because I think he can get goals if those three can really get it together and start creating. And we know they've all got some level of quality there with those given goals with Sancho and Donny especially. Then I think Marcus Rashford will get a lot out of that. I think especially in those dangerous areas at the back post.
Front three that Ollie wanted. He's finally getting there.
Wanted it, but decided
didn't want
Sancho's a left winger.
Exactly, yeah. Ronaldo, let's get into your 11. What is your 11 for this game? Very, very similar, especially in the attacking areas.
I've pretty much gone as strong as I feel like we can go, because first pre-season game, I usually think teams will go for their strongest 11, particularly for the first half or so, see what they're kind of working with, especially with Ten Hag needing to find out what his best 11 is. So I've gone for De Gea in goal, and I've gone for Dalot right back. I've not put Maguire for whatever reason. I feel like I've made that quite obvious previously. You
mean the captain of Manchester United Football Club that's been confirmed today?
Yeah,
Not putting him in. Even though he's injured, we'll not get into that.
I refuse to put him in.
Lindelof and Varane, okay.
I've got Lindelof and Varane, even though Varane didn't train in the second session, but he might have trained this morning.
Yeah.
Reports, but it looks like he might not play. I've gone for Luke Shaw left back, and then I've gone for a midfield pairing in a pivot of Garner and Fred, which I still think doesn't have a crazy amount of balance, because I feel like they're two number 8s. I know Garner used to be a bit more of a deep player, but he did become more of a box-to-box player playing for Nottingham Forest. And then I've gone for Bruno in the 10. I've gone for Sancho right wing, where we initially signed him to play. And then we've got Rashford on the left, where he usually fares better. And then we've got Martial up front as basically been our only striking option, with the fact that Ronaldo hasn't travelled on tour. He might be on his way out, and obviously Greenwood isn't available.
No, I think that's our strongest front four at the moment in time with everything that's going on. I think that I can understand where you're coming from without Bruno. And we'll get into my team, because I've done kind of a mix of everyone's here. Again, gone for Fred and Garner.
You're not playing Maguire either?
I'm not playing him. He's injured.
Captain of Manchester United Football Club?
He's injured. The reason I'm not playing him is not because I don't think he should be playing. I think that he's going to go for Lindelof and Bailly because they've been there from the start. I've kind of gone for most of the players that have been there from day one of pre-season. The only real one in there that hasn't has been Fred, I believe. So you've got De Gea in goal. I think at this moment in time, it's clear he's our number one. So I think, like you said, I think he'll start with our best keeper. Got Delo and Shaw as the fullbacks. I've got a worry with fullbacks this season. Molassi's obviously come in, I think strengthens it, but I still think we're short, especially on that right hand side for fullbacks. I've got Lindelof and Bailly. Same thing that you said, Abdul. I think Varane and Maguire will be rested or might only play half an hour because they've not been training. And I think it's between Bailly and Tuanzebe, and I think Bailly will get the run out in this game. Garner and Fred, I agree with what you said there. I don't think the balance is quite right with them. I'd rather see someone a bit better on the ball alongside either of them. I'm hoping to see Frankie de Jong and Garner, Frankie de Jong and Fred, but at this moment in time, that might be the case. I've gone for Donny van der Beek in the 10 just because Bruno's been, had the internationals a bit later, and then I've gone for that front three that I'm quite excited about seeing that front three. I am quite excited to see, with all the clips that's been coming out today, a few little bits and pieces, I'm excited to see what that can do if you get Rashford back, if you get Martial back, and you get a Sancho. I am looking forward to that. Well, even though with that said, and they could probably all change at half time, it'll probably be a different 11 completely at half time anyway. Let's have a quick look now at our opposition. Liverpool, we've mentioned United, we've mentioned who's going to play because they've been there for long, whatever it would be. Liverpool is quite a daunting test, though, for the first game on the Ten Hag, wouldn't you say? It is,
and I think when we spoke off camera before, I did say actually quite like the fact we're playing Liverpool first. I think you want to expose your weaknesses as soon as possible. If you're Erik ten Hag, you want to know up against the best players, which players. I really want to see Salah start. I really want to see Núñez, Firmino, Jota, as much quality as they've got. I want to see them play because you've got to figure out what this team needs from Erik ten Hag's perspective.
Ronaldo, are you as excited to see all them up against us?
I'm actually excited that the first game would be a rivalry game somewhere, playing against the likes of a Liverpool and not a Melbourne Victory. Well, no disrespect. Because I feel like there's a little bit of urgency and you can kind of see the level you're at. I know that sometimes reason games can be a bit false because they're friendly, but I don't think there's much friendliness between a Liverpool and United affair, no matter if it's pre-season or not. But I actually do want to see them play their strongest team. I do want it to be United's strongest team versus Liverpool's strongest team for at least the first half, so I can kind of gauge the levels. Because we did lose 9-0 on aggregate to Liverpool last season, sorry to say. So we need to see where the improvement lies, and I do think the front three we have chosen can hurt their back line.
I think
if we do get the opportunity,
done.
Because even last season there was a couple of occasions where Rashford did get in with his pace because he's our quickest forward, and he just didn't really have the sharpness and composure to make the most of it. And hopefully that's something that he can change this season, because Liverpool aren't completely impenetrable at the back, but you just got to go at them and you got to be a lot less timid and play with a lot more intensity than we did last season against him. I know that's probably a lot to ask for a first pre-season game, but I'm hoping there's a little bit of a new manager buzz when we step onto the pitch.
What do you reckon? Darwin Núñez start for them?
For the same reason Abdullah told me before, he might not, because he's had a little bit of a late with his international football, but I reckon he might go for a Jota. I think they'd go for a Jota, Firmino, and Salah front three maybe. I'm not sure whether he
doesn't score, because with all the stuff with Ronaldo, with all the stuff with it being Martial, I think if Núñez scores tomorrow, the way it's going to be portrayed and everything like that is not going to be good.
It's going to be a storyline all season when the likes of if Haaland and Núñez are both banging in goals, and then they're all looking at United.
It's going to be straight back onto United. But after that, let's get into your score predictions. Abdul, what do you reckon score is?
I don't
first
predict
10
losses.
hard game.
I don't predict losses anymore. I'm going to change that. It's a new approach. Just going to be purely positive. Hopefully that lasts more than 2 weeks. But I'm going to say, you know what? 2-1 United.
2-1.
2-1 United.
2-1 United. Ronaldo.
Marcus Rashford and... Who's going to be the second goal? A random one. Jimmy Garner. Just out there. A proper random one.
Okay. Ronaldo, what do you think?
I'm going for 2-2.
2-2.
Predicting the draw. I think 2-2. I think it'll be a Wan-Bissaka brace. I'm joking. I'm joking.
You have to put a bet on that now. You have to put a bet on him scoring now.
I'm going to go for Martial scores.
Yeah.
Get a bit of a buzz going towards his kind of staking his claim for being somewhat of a player after his disastrous loan as well at Sevilla. And I'm going to go for a Fred goal as well. I think Fred and Martial.
Okay. I'm going to go 4-4. It's pre-season. It could be ridiculous.
Predict scores.
Especially in the second half. United will have Martial, Donny van der Beek, Bruno, and Malacia comes on in the second half and scores. There you go.
Okay.
There's the I'm not picking Liverpool goal scorers, but that has been the preview for the Liverpool game. Make sure, get in the comments, give us your score predictions, give us your potential 11s. Also, if you want to send us a preview ahead of tomorrow's game to feature in the watch along, which will have Abdul on it, will also be joined by Joe McGrath, make sure you are sending that over to paddockmatchday@gmail.com. And if you are a member, there is a group chat that you can send those videos in. So thank you very much to Ronaldo joining us. Thank you very much to Abdul. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Make sure you're liking this video. We'll be here. We'll be here in the studio whilst the other guys are in Thailand and Australia and all them places. We'll still be in the studio, keeping you up to date with everything going on. I've been Alex. See you in the next one. Laters.